Hello, it's the 31st of May and you're tuned into Arirang News, coming to you from Seoul. I'm Kwon Jang-ho and it's good to have you with us. Kim Jong-un's right-hand man, Kim Yong-chol, has now met with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He's the most senior official to have stepped foot on U.S. soil in 18 years, and his visit shows significant intent from both sides towards making the North Korea-U.S. summit happen. Does it also suggest that a denuclearization deal is within reach? We'll discuss that and more with a guest in the studio later, but first we head over to our news centre, where Devin Whiting has the latest headlines. Devin?
Hi, Jang-ho. We now know a little bit more about that meeting between Kim and Pompeo Wednesday night in New York. It was over dinner at the residence of Washington's Deputy Ambassador to the UN. The Secretary of State tweeted afterwards that it was a good working dinner, and he posted a couple of pictures. They had 90 minutes together, but the State Department says on Thursday when they meet again, they'll have all day, starting at 9 a.m. local time. What they're going to talk about has not been released publicly, but it's expected to be the agenda for President Trump and Kim Jong-un when they meet on June 12th. We should hear from Pompeo by Thursday afternoon, since he's scheduled to hold a press briefing at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The White House is still optimistic that the much-anticipated Pyongyang-Washington summit will take place in Singapore as originally scheduled on June 12th. Preparations are underway in several locations, including at the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom, another venue where the U.S. and North Korea have been meeting. And CNN says the U.S. delegation were at Panmunjom again on Thursday, though their last scheduled meeting there was the day before. Our Cha Sang-mi tells us more.
The White House expects the summit with North Korea will happen in Singapore on June 12th, as originally scheduled. Referring to the working-level talks between the North and the U.S. to prepare for a historic summit between the two leaders, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said Wednesday that the Trump administration is continuing preparations to make the summit a reality.
We're continuing to prepare for the meeting between the president and the North Korean leader. As the president says, if it happens, we'll certainly be ready.
Sanders also said an American delegation led by U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim, has been meeting with North Korean Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee at the border village of Panmunjom. She said the meetings that have been held so far had been positive, adding that such momentum will be maintained. Sanders also stressed the importance of discussing denuclearization ahead of President Trump's meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
And it's not just the U.S. talking with North Korea. Tomorrow, high-level officials from South Korea will meet with their counterparts in the first such talks since the inter-Korean summit back in April. There are some potential joint projects on the table, most likely. That's one of many things that came out of the Panmunjom Declaration that still need to be discussed. Oh Jung-hee has this report.
At the April Inter-Korean Summit, the leaders of Seoul and Pyongyang agreed to hold military talks before the end of May with the aim of lowering tensions. They also agreed to hold Red Cross talks as soon as possible on resuming family reunions for families separated by the Korean War. But the schedules of both these talks have already been delayed, and that's why it's expected that setting the date of these talks will come above anything else at Friday's high-level talks. The date for the family reunions has already been fixed for August 15th, but it takes 2 to 3 months to identify and register people wishing to meet their family members from the other side of the border. Also believed to be on the agenda is the two Koreas holding a joint event on major shared dates. The first date set is June 15th. And as stipulated in the Panmunjom Declaration, Seoul and Pyongyang may also touch upon establishing a joint liaison office in the North Korean city of Kaesong, where officials from both South and North Korea will be stationed. Meanwhile, with Seoul's Vice Minister of Transport and Pyongyang's Vice Minister of Railways attending the meeting, it's expected that they will discuss linking the existing railways between the two Koreas. In the Panmunjom Declaration, the two Koreas have agreed to connect and modernize railways along the east coast, as well as between Seoul and the North Korean city of Sinuiju. The forming of joint teams for the Asian Games held in Indonesia this August seems to also be on the table, with the vice ministers of sports from South and North Korea both taking part in Friday's talks. And there's the possibility of forestation projects being brought up, as Seoul says the vice minister of its forest service may also be at the meeting. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
In other news, campaigning began today for South Korea's local elections coming up on June 13th. Most candidates began their campaigning in the wee hours. Until Election Day, they'll be reaching out to voters in a variety of ways and pitching their policies to them. Koreans will be electing mayors, governors, chiefs of local councils, and education superintendents who will represent them for the next 4 years. And because it's the first nationwide election under the Moon Jae-in administration, the results will be a barometer of public sentiment towards the government. The ruling Democratic Party of Korea is seeking a landslide victory, considering the high approval rating of the president and the party itself. By-elections will also be held in 12 districts nationwide, the outcome of which will determine which party gets more say in parliament. South Korea's industrial output rebounded in April, marking the biggest on-month jump since November 2016. Statistics Korea says industrial output soared 1.5% from a month earlier on the back of rising production in the mining, manufacturing, and construction sectors, offsetting declines in investment and consumption. And in terms of business sentiment, local companies are upbeat about the months to come. The Bank of Korea's Business Survey Index for May came to 80, up 1 point on month, marking the second consecutive month it's risen. The central bank attributed the rise to a pickup in the automobile and semiconductor exports. GM Korea officially closed its plant in Gunsan today, ending 2 decades of production there. The shutdown is part of the restructuring plan agreed upon by General Motors and the South Korean government. While the company will be looking to bounce back, the Gunsan area economy might not recover for a long time. Oh Soo-young reports.
General Motors has closed one of its 4 plants in South Korea, leaving an economic vacuum in the western city of Gunsan. The automaker's decision came in February as part of its corporate restructuring efforts, bringing the factory's 22-year history of car manufacturing to an end. Of the factory's 1,800 workers, most have taken voluntary retirement, 400 unpaid leave, while 200 are awaiting placements at GM Korea's 3 remaining plants. However, the fallout of the shutdown is expected to be far-reaching. Churning out some 270,000 vehicles a year, the factory accounted for half of Gunsan's exports and a third of total exports for the Greater Jeollabuk-do province. The livelihoods of some 12,000 local workers, employed by 130 affiliates and subcontractors that supplied auto parts to the factory, are on the line. Other local businesses, including restaurants and real estate agencies, are also expected to suffer due to the outflow of workers. To mitigate the impact on the local economy, some $20 million from the central government's supplementary budget this year has been earmarked to support Gunsan workers and businesses. The government plans to roll out employment support and take measures to attract new businesses to the city. Even so, experts doubt the region will ever be able to fill the gap left by GM's departure.
There doesn't seem to be a large company who wants to move their operation to Gunsan. And I think part of the problem is that the region has become less attractive because, the GM Korea has been there so long that I think Gunsan really didn't put much effort into attracting other businesses.
However, the expert says the initial pain of structural reform may pay off eventually, leaving the region with a glint of light at the end of the tunnel.
They do have a lot of people who are very familiar with how a manufacturing company works, so there is some human capital there that they can use. And they should have good road systems, and if nothing else, they still have the large factories that the GM Korea-U.S, which they may be able to utilize elsewhere.
The expert also urged the authorities to act quickly as the plant is now shut for good, and tens of thousands of local residents face an uncertain future. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Gunsan.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's most trusted aide, Kim Yong-chol, has had his first meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in New York, sitting down for dinner together. It's unclear how much of the summit agenda was addressed, but it's thought to be an informal meeting to continue building trust before more serious negotiations take place on Thursday local time. EG1 reports.
In New York late Wednesday local time, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted that he had a good working dinner with the vice chairman of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Central Committee, Kim Yong-chol. Pompeo said the menu included steak, corn, and cheese, and posted 2 pictures from the dinner. One showed the 2 shaking hands, and the other was of them at the table. Seated there also was Andrew Kim, chief of the Korean Mission Center at the CIA, a project Pompeo set up when he was the spy agency's chief. They met at 7 o'clock that evening at the Manhattan residence of the deputy ambassador to the UN and spent 90 minutes together. Afterwards, Kim headed straight back to the Hilton Hotel at One UN Plaza, where he will be staying for 2 days. U.S. State Department said Kim and Pompeo will have all of Thursday local time for their official meeting starting at 9 a.m., but the venue has not been disclosed. After the meeting, the State Department says Pompeo is scheduled to hold a press briefing at 2 in the afternoon local time at the Palace Hotel. Kim and Pompeo's talking points have not been made public, but it's widely believed they are putting the final touches on the agenda for the Pyongyang-Washington summit, how North Korea will denuclearize and how the U.S. will guarantee the regime's security. Kim Yong-chol, who arrived at JFK International Airport earlier on Wednesday, is the most senior North Korean official to step foot on U.S. soil in nearly 20 years. To make this trip happen, he was granted a sanctions travel waiver as he's under U.S. sanctions for his role in North Korea's nuclear program and other illicit activities. While Kim Yong-chol and Pompeo are meeting for the 3rd time, watchers are keen to find out if Kim Jong-un's right-hand man will visit Washington and meet with President Trump. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now joining us in the studio to discuss this meeting further is Dr. Pong Young-sik from the Yonsei Institute of North Korean Studies. Doctor, thank you for coming in today.
Pleased to be here.
Now, Kim Yong-chol has landed in New York. He's met with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and they've had a nice dinner together, it seems. It seems to be like a pre-meeting before the main talks happen on Thursday. But for today, what do you think they talked about over dinner?
I think it was, as described by Secretary Pompeo himself, a good working dinner, which can be regarded as a meeting in preparation for a more important meeting that is coming. Mr. Kim Yong-chol is believed to carry a personal letter of Mr. Kim Jong-un, the chairperson of the Korean Workers' Party of North Korea, for U.S. President Donald Trump. So a more important meeting will take place after the letter will be delivered to the White House.
Let's talk about that letter just now. So he has a letter supposedly for Donald Trump. What do you think is in that letter? And do you think he'll be given the chance to go to the White House to hand the letter in person to Donald Trump?
Well, there's no absolute guarantee that it would require Mr. Kim Yong-chol to actually travel outside New York to Washington, D.C. to personally deliver the letter to the President Donald Trump, because Mike Pompeo may do the job instead of Mr. Kim Yong-chol. But in terms of the expected content of the personal letter by Mr. Kim Jong-un, the content must be something beyond just reaffirming the genuine intentions of North Korea for denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The Trump administration's main reason to initially cancel the scheduled summit meeting in Singapore on the 12th was that there was no concrete sign that North Korean government was moving toward the goal of denuclearization of North Korea in return for security guarantee and promise of major economic assistance and other benefits from the United States and other countries. So if the content of letter will just stop at reaffirming North Korean leadership's commitment to denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, or its intention to drastically reduce its missile programs and the nuclear capacity as a nuclear state, then it'll be far from meeting the expectation of the Trump administration prior to the summit meeting. Because North Korea has to demonstrate that it will not pursue the United States' acceptance of the Pakistan model to be applied to North Korea by acknowledging North Korea as a de facto nuclear power state. But North Korea is ready to follow the Libyan path, that is a denuclearization, unilateral manner.
But going back to that meeting whether Kim Yong-chol would meet with Donald Trump or not, when Mike Pompeo went to Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un made the effort to meet him and they had pictures together. If Donald Trump doesn't meet him, couldn't that be interpreted as a slight snub? Wouldn't Trump want to make the effort to meet with Kim?
Definitely. I mean, but the ball is in the U.S. court. I mean, it will be beneficial to the Trump administration if it is expected to make the Trump administration look better. Then why not, right? But what is important is to make sure that this time North Korea means denuclearization of North Korea, not just denuclearization of the entire Korean peninsula, the official position that North Korea has been maintaining. Then we are basically staying in the same point, the square one. North Korea insisting that it is only willing to negotiate with its nuclear and missile programs as a part of the arms control negotiations between the two nuclear powers, North Korea and the United States. And the United States insisting that North Korea has to abandon all its nuclear materials and intercontinental ballistic missiles that can threaten United States and its allies. So it is very important for the United States to reveal that things are moving in the right direction. The right direction is that North Korea is moving in the direction of denuclearization of North Korea, not the denuclearization of the entire world or denuclearization on the Korean peninsula.
How far away do you think the two sides are at the moment? Do you think the meeting with Mike Pompeo and Kim Yong-chol tomorrow can have some sort of progress, have some sort of result that comes out of it?
Well, that's a very interesting question. But as you pointed out, that this is not the first meeting between Mr. Kim Yong-chol and Secretary Mike Pompeo. They have already met twice. And in Pyongyang, when Mike Pompeo was the director of the CIA, then it was believed that he made a very specific demands and the explanations to Mr. Kim Jong-un and Kim Yong-chol, what would constitute denuclearization of North Korea that is will be deemed acceptable to the United States if there will be a summit meeting between two leaders. According to his testimony in the House of Representatives, he reiterated that in a very clear manner, which will be free from any misinterpretations. He explained to North Korean leadership what would constitute the absolute preconditions for the United States to agree on providing security guarantee to the North Korean leadership in exchange for its abandonment of its nuclear and missile capability. So the deals are already placed on the table by Secretary Pompeo twice. So in the upcoming meeting, which will be the third meeting between Kim and Pompeo, I think they will exchange views on how to move ahead from the deals, which has been already on the table.
There's still no confirmation right now whether the actual summit will go ahead on June 12th as scheduled. Do you think they are on track at the moment to be able to do so, or could it actually be delayed, as Trump has sometimes hinted?
Well, I cannot guarantee anything these days when it comes to North Korea and President Donald Trump. But at the same time, there is at least a very firm desire on both sides to make it happen, at least for now. So one, it depends upon the content of the personal letter delivered by Kim Yong-chol on behalf of his boss, Chairman Kim Jong-un. If the content failed to satisfy the expectation of the White House, then who knows? I mean, 99.9% guarantee did not work in the past. So we have to brace ourselves for sudden change of events. But if the content of letter would meet the minimum bar of expectation for Trump administration, then Trump administration will maintain the green light on the working level officials dealing with North Korean counterparts in Panmunjom and the preparation team in Singapore.
Do you think there's an argument that both sides will want to compromise on what they're willing to negotiate a little bit because they want to make the meeting happen so much? For example, for Trump, there's the hope of a Nobel Peace Prize at the end of it. And for Kim Jong-un, he gets to meet the leader of the U.S., which is what the regime has wanted for such a long time. Do you think the meeting itself outweighs the details of the denuclearization deal?
Well, that is possible, but at the same time, we have to caution ourselves not to overestimate the leaders' desires or their needs to make the summit meeting happen. Because for North Korea, the summit meeting is very essential for the regime to be able to get away from the existing economic sanctions that have been really painfully biting North Korean economy. But at the same time, as explained by South Korean President Moon Jae-in after his sudden meeting with Chairman Kim Jong-un, Mr. Kim Jong-un seems to be extremely anxious, almost extremely afraid of in the future after he gives up nuclear weapons as the best means to guarantee his security and survival. So his desire or obsession with nuclear weapons and missiles may outweigh his desire to see the summit meeting with Donald Trump happen. On the other hand, it is true that President Trump would like to make a big bang prior to the elections in November, and he would be extremely pleased to win the Nobel Peace Prize. But bad deal would really ruin the Republican Party, his party's chance to win the election. So no deal is better than a bad deal with North Korea. And time is on the side of the United States, because the more delay the summit meeting will be, North Korea will continue to suffer under the pressure of the economic sanctions. So waiting might benefit the Trump administration to increase its strategic leverage upon Pyongyang.
While the summit is still in the air, other parties and other people are moving ahead with what to expect afterwards. For example, there's continuing speculation that a South Korea-North Korea-U.S. trilateral summit will follow the North Korea-U.S. summit. What are your prospects on that?
Well, it is very conceivable that there will be trilateral summit meeting among North Korea, South Korea, and the United States if there will be a very successful bilateral summit meeting between Washington and Pyongyang. Because as President Moon Jae-in of South Korea described many times in the past, that if there will be discernible progress on the front of North Korea denuclearization, then it will generate very positive momentum for possibly replacing the Armistice Agreement of 1953 with the more sustainable peace mechanisms on the Korean Peninsula. Then United States and the two Korea will be the main protagonist in negotiating the deals of replacing the existing confrontational situation. And China may be invited to be the fourth party in that negotiations. So it'll be a kind of a trickle-down effect hinged upon a very successful summit meeting between Washington and Pyongyang. And Japan wants to make sure that any deals struck by Mr. Kim and Mr. Trump will be leaving out Japan's concern that Japan and South Korea may still remain within the range of the nuclear missile attacks by North Korea if North Korea is going to maintain substantial amount of nuclear warhead and the short-range missiles. So Japan wants to make sure that Washington will heed Japan's need to deal with these additional issues in the summit meeting.
And very briefly, before we go, there's also reports emerging, rumors, I would call them, that there could be a trilateral summit between North Korea, China and Russia before the US summit happens. They were saying some date like June 9th or something. Do you think that could be arranged quick enough before that?
Well, in terms of physical demands for the trilateral summit meeting to take place, it is possible, but I hope it's not going to happen because I've been on a roller coaster, the sudden cancellation of the summit meeting by Trump and whatnot. But that may exacerbate the United States' perception that China has been behind North Korea's emboldened behavior that jeopardized the summit meeting in Singapore. So I don't know whether how much China is really sanguine about having this trilateral meeting prior to the important meeting between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump.
We're out of time, so we'll have to end it there. But thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
You're welcome.
That concludes our show for now, but I'll be back same time tomorrow and hope you can join us then. But in the meantime, do stay tuned to Arirang for more news updates throughout the day. I've been Kwon Jang-ho and thank you for watching. Goodbye.